Did you know the top 1% controls over half, 52% of global wealth,
It's staggering.
while 3.6 billion people are living on less than $10 a day?
$10.
Or how about this? 67% of countries,
Hmm.
two-thirds, showing authoritarian trends. Democratic quality is actually declining.
These are the hard truths we need to look at.
Huh.
But like you said, it's not all doom and gloom. There's this immense untapped potential alongside it.
Okay, so let's unpack these failures. Where do we start? The economy seems like a big one.
It really is. The sources describe a global economy just creaking under the weight of debt.
What kind of numbers are we talking?
We hit $310 trillion in global debt in 2025. Trillion.
Wow, that's hard to even comprehend.
It is. And it's not just a big number, right? It shows how the system fundamentally misallocates resources, especially for low-income nations. They're spending, on average, 16% of their GDP just servicing debt.
16%. That's money not going to schools, hospitals.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And, what's fascinating is how these financial systems, which are ultimately human creations, right, they've ended up prioritizing corporate profits over basic human needs.
Right. They weren't handed down from on high. We built them.
Exactly. And we can rebuild them.
So how does that play out? Can you make that more concrete?
Yeah, think about the Village of Forgotten Voices story from the source material. Picture this thriving village, everyone working together initially.
Okay.
But slowly, a small group starts hoarding the best land, the best tools, and they convince everyone else that, their struggle is just the way things are. Normal.
Okay. I see the parallel.
It perfectly mirrors how elite control can stifle potential in our world. But the story also shows the way out: collective effort, grassroots action, things like community solar digital transparency.
Yeah.
They can help reclaim that balance.
Makes sense. So moving from economics, this obviously impacts politics too.
Massively.
And the picture there is, well, also pretty concerning. The sources say that in 2025, 67% of countries saw declining democratic quality.
Two-thirds again, yeah.
Lobbying, campaign finance, basically entrenching elite interests.
And what happens to trust?
It tanks. Global trust in governments hit a historic low, just 26%.
26%? Wow. So how does that happen? How does this distrust, this corruption become so normal?
Good question.
Well, think about the river of truth parable. People are drinking from this muddy river, right? Poisoned by factories upstream, owned by a few powerful families.
Okay.
Most people just accept being sick. They blame other things. Until a few brave souls decide to trace the pollution back to its source and rally the others.
Right. Finding the root cause.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor for the corruption and, importantly, the misinformation poisoning our systems.
Yeah.
78% of internet users encounter manipulated content daily.
78%. That's huge.
It is. And those brave souls, they represent the grassroots movements, the transparency tools, maybe things like blockchain that can expose the lies and hopefully help the river of truth run pure again.
And it's not just politics getting poisoned. Social cohesion is fracturing too. The research highlights something striking. Just 10 corporations control 85% of global media.
10 companies, shaping the narrative for almost everyone.
Which limits diverse perspectives, obviously. And then you have 65% of people reporting weaker community ties, often because of polarization that's, well, amplified by algorithms.
Yeah, the filter bubbles, the echo chambers, they drive us apart.
Definitely.
And then underlying all of this, you have the environmental crisis. Our systems are just collapsing under unsustainable practices.
The stats there are pretty grim too, aren't they?
Oh, they are. Since 1970, biodiversity is down by 70%. 70%.
Right.
Driven by deforestation, fossil fuels, the usual suspects.
And looking ahead.
The sources project 300 million climate refugees by 2050. 300 million people displaced.
That's a staggering human cost.
It is. And meanwhile, 80% of Fortune 500 companies are actually failing to meet Paris Agreement targets, often hiding behind greenwashing.
Claiming to be green while not much changes.
Exactly. It's a really stark picture overall.
So if we tie this together, this ignorance, this passivity the dissertation talks about, what are the big consequences?
Well, fundamentally, it just crushes human potential. Think about it. Over 1 billion people lack basic education.
1 billion.
Nearly 4 billion don't have reliable internet. That locks out so much innovation, so much opportunity.
And it impacts well-being directly too, right?
Absolutely. Mental health crises now affect 1 in 3 people globally. That stifles creativity contribution. It's like this huge reservoir of human capability that's just sitting there untapped.
That's a powerful way to put it. How can we understand that suppression better?
Let's use another story. The clockmaker's legacy. This brilliant clockmaker, right? But He only makes these intricate timepieces for the wealthy elite.
Okay.
Meanwhile, his city is falling apart around him. Pollution, empty markets, people just drifting. He eventually realizes his amazing skill only serves the elite's schedule, while the majority are left behind.
So what does he do?
He has this change of heart. He starts teaching the poor how to build their own clocks, using scraps, sharing his designs freely.
Empowering them directly.
Exactly. And it's a perfect illustration of how we need to redefine prosperity, move beyond just GDP. Think about things like Bhutan's Gross National Happiness Index. Prioritizing the majority unlocks all this hidden potential that ultimately benefits everyone.
And the sources do stress that this potential is immense. Human creativity, for instance.
It's boundless. We see AI making breakthroughs in healthcare, resource management. Real solutions are possible.
And grassroots efforts are already showing promise, like those universal basic income trials in Kenya.
Yeah, 75% of recipients started businesses. It shows what happens when you give people even a small amount of security and trust. The ingenuity is there.
Right.
And we have incredible tools ready to go. Open source models like Linux, Wikipedia, they show collaborative innovation works on a massive scale.
Blockchain for transparency.
Yep. And renewables. Solar and wind costs have plummeted down 85% since 2010.
Yeah.
The technology is here. The tools are ready. We just need to pick them up and use them collectively.
There are still big challenges, hurdles to overcome.
Oh, definitely. The research calls them minor and major challenges.
Okay, what are the minor ones? Though they don't sound that minor.
Well, things like apathy. Nearly 60% of people are disengaged from civic life.
Yeah.
And misinformation that's huge, confusing over 2/3 of users on key issues.
Yeah, if people don't care or don't know it's true, it's hard to act.
Exactly. But then you have the major challenges.
Yeah.
Elite control. We mentioned the media concentration, 12 corporations controlling 85% of global media now.
So concentrated power.
Right. And systemic inertia. Basically, the system resists change. Think about climate policies. 70% get stalled by lobbying, even with public support. The system itself pushes back.
Which brings us back to leadership, doesn't it? Poor leadership seems central to why things get stuck.
It really is. The dissertation goes deep into the realities of poor leadership. Leaders prioritizing personal gain, basically. CEOs hiding environmental damage. Politicians pushing tax cuts for the super rich while cutting social safety nets. You know the drill.
And using deception.
A key tactic.
Yeah.
65% of political ads in 2024 contained outright falsehoods, actively manipulating people.
And the impact of all that.
Profound. Deepening inequality, the top 1% grabbed nearly a quarter of all global income in 2025.
Wow.
More fear-based politics, driving division. And stagnation on crucial issues, like the slow walk on renewables, despite, 85% public support?
Do the sources give specific examples? Case studies?
They do, and they're pretty damning. Think back to the 2008 financial crisis.
Right, the bailout.
Exactly.
Yeah.
$700 billion in taxpayer money just in the U.S., while 11 million people lost their homes. And accountability for the architects, very little. Or Brazil's Amazon deforestation, 2019 to 2022. Leadership basically ignored indigenous rights. Deforestation jumped 65%.
Though didn't pressure help later?
It did. Grassroots and international pressure managed to reduce it by 35% later on. It shows resistance works, but the initial damage was severe.
Okay. Any others?
COVID-19 vaccine inequity, 2020 to 2022. Wealthy nations hoarded vaccines. Billions, literally 3.5 billion people, were left without access for far too long, driven purely by profit motives and nationalism.
Sobering stuff. These examples really show the cost.
They really do. It underscores the need for a fundamental shift.
Okay, so it's a tough picture, but the dissertation doesn't just leave us there, right? It proposes solutions to combat elite control.
Exactly. It's not just diagnosis, it's prescription too.
Yeah.
And the first big one is transparency and accountability.
How does that work in practice?
Things like global truth commissions, using AI maybe to track financial flows, expose those tax havens holding, $38 trillion,
Trillions hidden away.
and having real-teeth international courts to enforce accountability. We saw a glimpse of what's possible with the Panama Papers back in 2016.
Right, that exposed $2 trillion and led to reforms in dozens of countries.
Exactly. Information is power when it gets out.
So that's formal mechanisms.
Yeah.
What about empowering people from the ground up?
That's the second key solution. Grassroots empowerment and collective action.
Me.
Funding community organizing. Boosting media literacy so people can spot misinformation. Creating global forums, maybe online, for people to connect, share strategies, build solidarity.
Like that hashtag #TaxTheRich campaign on X.
Perfect example. Mobilized 10 million users in 2024. shows the power of digital tools for collective action.
Okay, transparency, grassroots power.
Hmm.
What else?
Technological and policy innovations. Using tech for good.
Like blockchain for voting.
Yeah, making it transparent, harder to rig, using it for resource allocation too. And then policy levers. Wealth taxes, the 2% tax on billionaires could fund so much. Universal basic income.
Is there a real-world example of tech transforming governance like that?
Estonia's e-governance system is a great one. 99% of public services online, it cut corruption, boosted public trust by 40%. It shows tech can be used to make things better, more efficient, more trustworthy.
So these solutions paint a picture, a vision for a liberated future, as the dissertation calls it.
That's the culmination, yes. Guided by core principles: equity, sustainability, collaboration, innovation, and always keeping the future in focus.
And it gets practical, not just high-level principles.
Oh, yeah. There's a blueprint for the underprivileged and overworked. Basically, a plan for the 99%.
What's in the blueprint?
Economic security is key. UBI maybe $1,000 a month, funded by that 2% wealth tax. Debt forgiveness for 50 low-income nations. Big push for cooperative businesses, aiming for 1 billion people employed in co-ops by 2040.
Beyond just money.
Absolutely. Free universal education and healthcare, leveraging AI platforms to deliver them widely, decentralized community power grids, green jobs, 10 million by 2035, and major environmental restoration projects.
Like that stream in Seoul,
Yeah.
Chingashin.
Exactly. Restoring that urban stream increased biodiversity by 600%. It shows regeneration is possible even in cities. It's a really holistic, actionable plan.
A crucial part of this, though, seems to be thinking long-term, prioritizing future generations.
That's central. And it often means making sacrifices now. There's a beautiful parable for this, the gardener's sacrifice.
Tell me about it.
A gardener realizes her soil is depleted. So instead of harvesting everything for herself that season, she stops. She plants seeds specifically to nourish the soil for the next season, even though she goes hungry.
And her neighbors.
They mock her at first. But eventually, her garden flourishes like never before, and her children inherit this incredibly fertile paradise.
So the message is short-term pain for long-term gain.
Pretty much. It mirrors the need for us to make some tough choices. Now, maybe higher taxes on carbon, maybe consuming less to ensure a sustainable future. The targets are ambitious: 70% carbon reduction by 2035, 85% waste recycling by 2040. It requires that future focus.
It really brings to mind that future festival exercise from the sources.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
This idea of a global festival where everyone contributes an idea for rebuilding society. A child suggests free AI education.
A farmer shares plans for a solar co-op.
An artist unveils a mural of unity. And the best ideas to the wealth tax, green jobs, community governance actually become reality. It ends with this collective pledge to the future.
It's such a powerful way to visualize how collaboration and imagination can literally build a better world, turning dreams into blueprints.
So let's try and wrap this up. What are the main takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, I think it's clear our current systems, economic, political, social, environmental, are fundamentally failing the majority.
Driven by debt, corruption, division, unsustainability.
Exactly. And rooted in, as the sources say, ignorance, passivity, and importantly, selfish leadership.
And the consequences are huge. Suppressed potential, eroded trust, deep injustice. Elites maintaining control.
And this is the crucial part. It's not hopeless. Humanity's creativity, our technology, our ability to collaborate, these offer real, powerful pathways towards something much better. Universal prosperity isn't a pipe dream.
Right. So this isn't just an academic exercise. It's a call to action for you listening.
Absolutely. The sources are very direct about this.
They urge individuals, engage in daily reflection, reject fear which is used to control us, educate yourself and others.
And communities. Organize locally. Demand accountability. Don't wait for permission.
Innovators. Build the tools we need for transparency, for equity, like those blockchain voting systems.
And leaders, the challenge is stark. Serve the 99%. Champion justice and sustainability, not just personal gain or corporate interests.
It's a profound challenge.
It really is. And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. As of today, June 22, 2025, the tools are here. AI, renewables, global communication, grassroots movements gaining power. They're ready.
So the question isn't, can we?
The question is, will we? How do we, collectively move beyond the current suffering and build that legacy, a legacy of love, learning, liberation for the generations to come, through grounded, practical, maybe even miracle-working actions, as the source puts it.
A powerful question to ponder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into reclaiming humanity's destiny. We really hope this conversation sparks more thinking, more exploration for you.